Namaskara, Krishna.
So can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes, Krishna. Both, yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Krishna.
Yes, we can hear you.
Please unmute yourself and let me know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
That's something wrong here. I don't think I'm unmuted. I'm unmuted. Hello? This is interesting. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I had pressed the, the speaker, I had shut it off. So sorry. Now I think things are working. So can we start now?
Sure.
Okay. Can you see my screen? I'm just going to put it on slideshow mode.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
We can see.
It's not coming on slideshow. I don't know why. Hold on a second. Now let me see if it comes on slide. It's not coming on slideshow mode. Now it should be okay, right? This is full screen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Let me start with a small prayer. Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. There's something wrong here. Hold on a second. It's not going to the screen mode for some reason. Now it's okay. Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha, Shri Krishna Parabrahmane Namaha, Shri Lakshmi Nrsimha Parabrahmane Namaha, Shri Lakshmi Hayavadana Parabrahmane Namaha, Sarvam Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Let me start with just a small thanks to my father who attained Sriman Narayana about 15 days back. He has helped me a lot and given me my freedom to learn whatever I want. So I really want to thank him. With this, I'll start this lecture today. We are now going to talk about historical introduction to Vidyasthanas, Vedanta and the Bhagavad-Gita. The idea here is, where did this Bhagavad-Gita crop up in our system of understanding? And what are the Vidyasthanas? What is the source of knowledge for our Vaidika view? This is a very important thing to understand. Many of you already know this. I'm just redoing this for the benefit of just an overview. Then comes the question, why Vedanta, right? Why should we bother about Vedanta? Why are we wasting our time here to learn about Vedanta? We should have done something else. So this crops up to everybody. Why don't I start a company? Or why don't I do something else? Or watch a movie or something like that. So this question pops up to almost everyone. We have to understand why. And we have to keep that in mind. Just a second, it's not slipping to the next. Okay, here it is. One thing we should know is, just put this. Okay. The nature of all beings, everyone, is to look for happiness. This we constantly see from an ant to human beings. They want to look for something. They think that there's a lot of happiness in money. So they have to go after money, or they go after something else in life. Why are we looking for happiness? Because we are made out of Ananda, the I, the we, what we talk about, which is inside our body. Probably it can go outside the body too. But that I is looking for happiness because that is made of happiness. So we cannot avoid this. That's why it's the nature of every person. What we will do is we'll go for 30 minutes non-stop and then stop for questions for 15 minutes. Okay? Please write down the questions. I have already sent you the link for the Google Doc. You can put it on the Google Doc. It's better to organize yourself like that. That way, if you have a question, you can go to the Google Doc and start typing in on your computer. And you can, I will answer the questions as they appear in the Google Doc in order. Okay? All right. Now, we know that we want happiness, but we don't know where to find happiness. So this is the game of life. So we keep on doing different things to find happiness. That's the nature of all beings. Most people normally look for happiness outside themselves through their senses. So they contact the outside world through their senses, the five senses and the mind, and that's how they try to seek happiness. Some people go for beyond, like charity, compassion, fame, whatever ego, whatever the trips they have to, they can take to find happiness. But all of them are trying to do something from it's like the frog in the well syndrome. They're looking for happiness in the wrong place. That is the outside the world. But that's how nature works. So what's the nature? Even though they don't find happiness, they get burnt several times looking for so many things in life. They keep on going after the same thing because we are sort of, I should say, obsessed, or we have this kind of a habit to always look for happiness outside. Like how the flies, some kind of insects keep on going towards a hot bulb because it's seeking light. But even it loses a wing, the wing gets burned, it doesn't matter, still it goes towards the light. This is the nature of human beings and probably animals too. So we have to get out of this rut. We need to have the escape velocity to get out of this gravitational force or whatever that force is keeping us towards the external world and external objects. This is a hard job. Only some people can get out of the control of attraction to senses. So let's think about what is maximum happiness. Human beings, they can say that, oh, lots of money, I want to own the whole universe or whole world, anything I want. This is the limit of human happiness. I want to be young, good. I want to have always good health. But you know that this is not true. One cannot get it. And in spite of that, this is limited because our Shastras want to aim at the highest level of happiness. Just a second. I'm very busy in a class. I will talk to you later, please. Sorry. So there is limit to human happiness, but the Shastras are telling you that you can go much beyond this. And what is the highest level of happiness? It says the Ashta Gunas: no thirst, no hunger, no sorrow, no old age, no death, no papa. All desires should come true. Whatever I think should come true. These are listed in Apahatamatma, Vijaro, Vimrtyuho, Vishokaha, Vijigitsaha. This verse, it shows the 8 conditions of unconditional happiness. This is what we are looking for, and the Shastra says so. Finding the highest inner happiness is important, and happiness is within and not outside in the external world, because any experience outside will become limited in the amount of happiness that can be derived. So now comes the idea here. Somebody even asked a question regarding this, I remember. I might want to answer it right away here. We are in 3 states, right? That is waking state, dreaming state, and deep sleep state. Maybe due to some other states like drugs or alcohol, there could be a combination of different states, like waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. So these three states are known as Tripura, are the 3 cities. Unfortunately, most of us are unable to get out of these three states. In these three states, we will not be able to experience maximum happiness. The bliss or ananda is experienced in the fourth state, known as Turiya Avastha. And this state is natural to people. Just like how we go to sleep, we can get into the fourth state. People are not trying, and it needs a lot of a special process to get there. And the question which was asked was, some people talk about Mahaturiya state and Turiya Atita state and all. What you should understand is all the additional states come within the fourth state. This fourth state is an important thing. The additional states which are mentioned by some acharyas or some people, they all will be clubbed under the fourth state. So it's not a big issue at all. So how do you get to the fourth state? That's a tough part, because our senses are driven outbound. Okay? This is the tough part. So now, what is the gamut and focus of our Shastras? If you look at it, I'll give you a small diagram here to try to understand. Whatever we understand through the senses or through our sensual media is known as Bhuhu. Bhuhu is not just the earth. Bhuhu is anything. You could be watching some star far away using a telescope or something, but still that is Bhuhu, because that is perceived through our senses. Once you go to the one level higher, you get to the level of Bhuvaha. That means if your senses are controlled completely, your pranas work, and you go to the realm of Bhuvaha, where the Devatas are seen. When the pranas are controlled, Devatas can be seen, and a different realization is obtainable. You go beyond Bhuvaha, it is about Adhyatma. That is the origin of everything, what the Vedas call as Atma, or the origin of everything, the supporter of everything, the force behind everything. That is known as Suvaha. So these mantras in our daily routine are given for us to remember that this is where truth is. So the highest happiness is in Adhyatma, and that's where Shastras focus on. But to get from one level to the other, that is from the sensual world to the inner world of the Devatas, and also the inner world of Atman, one has to go through a process known as dharma. So dharma is actually a yogic process which will take you from one level of understanding to a different level of understanding and realization. So these are very, they're not study focused. They're not like you understand so many Shastras and you transfer between one level of realization to the next level of realization or the next level of realization. It doesn't happen that way. It has to go through real process of yoga or meditation of different kind. That is why tapaha is very important. And the tapaha is going off. That is, the tapas is going away from ordinary life. How did the Vedas originate? There's a question. And I'm talking about only what the traditional acharyas feel and what they know about. But the modern view may be different. Modern view would be, oh, somebody wrote it up. Or a bunch of folks didn't have any job to do. They just wrote it up and made it bigger and bigger and bigger. And now they came up with a 10,000 verses or something, and that became the Vedas. That's a typical modern view. But the traditional acharya's view is totally different. What is that? Long time back, there was no library or anything like that. People were sitting somewhere. They could go to the Turiya Avastha, that is the fourth state, and directly connect with reality. And when they connect with reality, they experience reality without even any problems. They didn't need any books or anything like that. The jnana was visible to them. They realized knowledge, who they were, what is Atma, what is Antaratma, what is Paramatma, how to get there. All these things used to come in their mind by focus and being in the the wonderful example of Dakshinamurti tells us that the yogis and other people who were in front of Dakshinamurti requested him to give knowledge, and all he did was smiled and did not open the mouth. He was silent. Maunam Vyakhyana. Using Mauna, he transmitted all the knowledge to the rishis, and the rishis were very happy. This is how the older initiation from one rishi to the other happened. So first, the Vedas were realized by the rishis, and some people around in the front of them, they could directly be given this knowledge. Some people could not understand it. They were taught. Eventually, over generations, they could not understand directly. The implementation knowledge was lost. So the next generation rishis, the sons of rishis, or the minor rishis, rishikas, all these people had to figure out what it is. So slowly they started writing down their realization in forms of sentences and words. And that became the Vedas and Upanishads. But the Prayoga Vijnana was lost. That is transmission of knowledge without using any books or anything like that. That was lost. So they had to resort to texts and writing and things like that. So this is said in the Nirukta. Whatever I said today now is said in the Nirukta. The Nirukta, what it says is, exactly, Sakshatkrita Dharmanaha Rishayo Bubuhu. Ones who realized became the rishis. And they told the next generation who are not so well equipped. And that's how the Vedas came to being. And eventually the Vedas were written down. It was initially carried down from generation to generation by actual word of mouth. This idea of knowledge being inside and not just in a textbook is very clear from this from this picture of Mahabharata, where Bhishma is lying down on a bed of arrows. In fact, the war is over, and then he is waiting for the Uttarayana Punyakala. For 50 days or something, he was lying on the bed of arrows without anything. He could survive. And at that time, the Pandavas came and asked him, can you tell us dharma? Because you're the oldest in our family. You know a lot of dharma, and we don't know what that dharma is. Can you help us? He gave a wonderful lecture about what dharma is, and that he did not go to a library in the night and pick up and figure out should I use this or not, and should I get a presentation or a PowerPoint presentation or something. He never did that. He just had the knowledge within, and he just said it. So the knowledge is fundamentally within, and one has to realize that. The position of Bhagavad Gita among the Vidyasthanas, very important to understand what is this Bhagavad Gita about. Okay? First, we will come out and say, what are the Vidyasthanas? There are 14 sources of knowledge, which are the fundamental source for Vaidika knowledge. And all this came from the rishis. As I told you earlier, Vedas, the 4 Vedas came from the rishis. The Upanishads came from the rishis. They are realizations, direct realizations, and then they wrote it down. Then comes the supporting text, the 6 Vedangas in the sutra form. They help people understand the nature of the knowledge contained in the Vedas. So these came later. Nirukta, Vyakarana, Chanda, Shiksha, Kalpa, Jyotisha, all came later. And then there are 4 Upangas, Mimamsa, Nyaya, Puranas, and Dharmashastras. So these totally 4 plus 6 plus 4, 14 sources of knowledge. This is where all knowledge of Vaidika related knowledge came into being. In parallel, Dharmashastras, Itihasa, Puranas, Mahabharata, Ramayana, they also came in parallel. Yoga also came in parallel. The Yoga Shastras are there, Hiranyagarbha and other Yoga Shastras. Agamas sort of followed later. So agamas are rituals, in the way in which we do prayers and offer worship to the deities. So there are different kinds of agamas. So Bhagavad Gita is inside Mahabharata. So that's where it's a portion of Smriti. Smriti is what is learned through remembrance. That is just memory of these rishis. And Shruti is what is heard or revealed. Shruti means what they heard directly in their realization. And that inside Shruti, you have Samhita, Brahmanas, Aranyaka, Upanishads. But Bhagavad Gita is a summary of all the Upanishads. Sarva Upanishado Gavo, Dogdha Gopalanandanaha. This is a famous verse. So this is where Bhagavad Gita's position is in the knowledge sources. It's a wonderful summary. And beyond everything, directly Brahman took an avatar in the form of Krishna and directly told this information to Arjuna. That is the value and the importance of Bhagavad Gita. So you have to look at also history and chronology. If you look at it, the Shrutis came something like 4000 BCE, before the Common Era, to about 1000 BCE. And then later on came the Nirukta, then came the Shauta Sutras and all, and Dharma Shastras came later. And so what happened is, here comes how our knowledge got transferred, right? Upanishads were very hard to understand. They're complicated. Because they're complicated, Brahma Sutras were written by Bodhayana somewhere around 400 BCE or something. That's what people say. The Brahma Sutras were codification, sutras to codify the knowledge of Upanishads. And to give them this is a coherent view of the Upanishads. To give that kind of a view, Brahma Sutras came to, Brahma Sutras were written. Eventually, what happened was, different Jaimini wrote the Purva Mimamsa Sutras, that is for the, Purva Mimamsa is for the Karma Kanda. That was written also. So this particular slide is to show how historically the chronology chronologically how the events happened. The Smritis, Manusmriti, Yajnavalkya Smriti, Vishnu Dharma Sutra and all, they came later. The Shankaracharya lived around 788 AD to 820 AD. This is what is the common understanding, but some acharyas have put Shankaracharya's date as prior to Buddha, which is prior to 600 BCE. So that's a sort of an error. That's what most philosophers, historians feel, that Shankaracharya came some around 788 AD to 820 AD. This is how they have determined. You can look into number of history texts to find out different views on this. Why are we saying this? What's the purpose of this? Is the Vedanta took different colors, like Advaita Vedanta, Dvaita Vedanta, Vishishtadvaita Vedanta. Why did they take such views? How did it happen? And the background of that needs to be understood. So first came the Brahma Sutras, then came the Bhagavad Gita, and then number of Smritis were written, and Shankaracharya arrived at the scene. So Vedanta summary is Gita in a way, but Gita is sadhana focused. Sadhana means tactics focused. It's a yoga shastra. Why is it a yoga shastra? That yoga is the one which can take from a person from one stage to the other, finally to the stage of realization. And it's also a dharma. Dharma is also, the meaning of dharma is also Parabrahman, Krishnam, Dharmam, Sanatanam. So dharma means Krishna itself. But dharma is also the path which takes us towards Brahman. So Vedanta is not just a product of intellectual reasoning or some kind of an armchair philosophy written by somebody. Oh, this is what I think. That's what I think. It's not like that. It's a realization of so many people put together. So I'm not going to go too much about this because this is a summary of what I said earlier. But I think a point about dharma is important to understand. What does dharma mean? Dharma is tapas, that is meditation, realization. And these 14 sources are not just sources of literary understanding, but they are dharmasthanas. That means realizations of so many rishis and later people. What dharma means? Abhyudaya nishreyasa. It gives what is good here and what is good hereafter, after death. Where are we going after death? Most people want to think about what I want to achieve right in this life, not about next life, because they don't understand who they are. But this dharma is about understanding where we are going, how to get there. Dharma is also that which is holding the whole universe together. Dharma is the force. If you think about a common force which is holding together, scientifically you can say, oh, the gravitational force, the string theory, the other forces are holding everything together. That's just a physics view of it. If you look at the whole life, dharma is holding all things together. Dharma is keeping the nature of water like how it is, the nature of fire, nature of our breathing, nature of our hearts, nature of our minds. All these things are kept by dharma, which is holding this universe together. Real understanding of dharma is only possible over several janmas, over a process of yoga only. So now comes this, most of it I have already said. Nothing is new here, that this is the progress of Vedanta, where the other Nyaya and other subjects had their own sutras. But Vedanta sutras were interpreted differently later. There was no single rishi after Bodhayana who gave the summary of the sutras. There was a summary given by Kritakoti. There was a summary and explanation of this sutras given later called the Kritakoti, but that is lost. But let me come back to dharma. What happened in the so many thousand years later? Dharma was there alive in the time of rishis because they could directly realize truth. And dharma became broken. That means people were unable to get to the realization state. They could not follow the paths of yoga, karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, which will be explained in the Bhagavad-Gita in detail. The bridge to Brahman was broken. That's where people started resorting into intellectual ideas rather than real dharma. The real dharma is yoga, but they stopped it and they became more intellectually oriented. What happens? The four shastras, that is Vyakarana, Purva Mimamsa, Uttara Mimamsa, Nyaya, these four shastras became very important because they're all intellectually oriented. And that is known as Chaturshastra. People say, oh, this guy is a Chaturshastra Pandita, he has studied Vyakarana, Purva Mimamsa, Uttara Mimamsa, etc. The people say. But there's only one side of the game. The real game is yoga and direct realization. But now, because of the loss of such yoga, people are only looking at these analytical shastras as the main shastra. So the purpose of finding the Ananda within, which was our first subject, why Vedanta? To find happiness. That purpose of finding happiness and bliss got corrupted by focus on the intellect only. So most people are now doing intellectual studies and they have a lot of different views about it. Hence, there will be difference of opinion because intellect is different. Jnana means moksha only mainly. So the jnana does not mean other kind of jnana. Jnana, mokshe dehi jnanam. Actual realization is real jnana. So the rest of the jnana saying that, oh, I know Bhagavad-Gita jnana, just like analytical knowledge. That's not really real knowledge. Adhyatma jnana is what we have to focus on. That is what I mentioned as bhuhu bhuvaha suvaha. That suvaha includes adhyatma jnana. That should be the focus. Now, we have come to some level. I'm rushing through we have finished about 30 minutes, probably not even 30 minutes. We have a couple of more minutes to go. Let me try to explain here. We are now coming to the idea of introduction to where we are in the Bhagavad Gita, why Bhagavad Gita. and what led to Bhagavad Gita, and what is the value of Bhagavad Gita. We have given some chronology now. Why there are three views, Advaita, Advaita, and Vishishtadvaita. There are other views too. Achintya Bheda from the Chaitanya Sampradaya, Shuddhadvaita, Vallabha. So there are different views on Vedanta. Why not one? We have to understand that Vedanta talks about something beyond the ordinary sensual world. If you look at a sensual object, something in front of you, a concrete object, a tiger, say, or a tree, we don't have much difference of opinion about a tree or a tiger. Okay, some people may be colorblind and they may say the real tiger appears more reddish than yellowish or something like that, with black streaks or brown streaks or something like that. But whatever may be, we clearly can understand a concrete object in front of us, but we don't understand the mind. We don't understand the self or the Jivatma. We don't understand the Paramatma, who is the inner controller, because they are unseen. Because they are unseen, we have different views regarding them. Different acharyas have given different views. So this agreement is something natural. Disagreement is natural. It is not something to be worried about, but we should understand why they came up with these different views. To just give you an idea, my Guru Acharya, one of the Acharyas, Sri K.S. Varadacharya, Kotimangalam Varadacharya, has spent a long time, almost a lifetime, on these kind of issues. His view is that these Acharyas did not differ in their minds. Their hearts were one. Their expression were different in different languages, in different types of sentences, based on time and different other conditions, and also the level of the students in front of them. Now, before this section goes about some material causality issues, these are very important to understand the idea of Vedanta. Now, I'll stop for a few minutes and see if you have any questions. And probably I should start answering the ones which were asked before. Let me see if I can find them in a second. Okay, this is the Google Docs. I'm opening the Google Docs. I think you can see too. Oops. I'm increasing the font size. Okay. The Nagarjuna's Shunyavada, we will come later because that comes in the Buddhism. And the slide, the three series, the fourth state, that is Mahaturiya and Turiyatita, we already talked about. It's actually combined within the Turiya. Turiya is a all-encompassing state. So we can put in the Turiya state all other states which come there. The concept of Bhuhu, Bhuvaha, Suvaha, right? The Bhu means the experience. The word Loka means experience in Sanskrit, right? Bhu. So Bhu is whatever we experience through our senses. It could be anything in this universe only coming through our senses and mind. That is Bhu. Bhuvaha is when they do yoga, when they stop the breathing and they can control their mind. Yogaha chitta vritti nirodha. That means they control their mind. Then the pranas act within the body, and the pranas give you a different realization within, and that is known as Bhuvaha. And there is one thing called Suvaha, which is beyond, that is the realization of Brahman. But the term Bhuhu, Bhuvaha, Suvaha also, in some ways, if you look at the dictionary of the Vedas, Nirukta or something, it's already said that Bhu is something, earth is Bhuhu, Suvaha is the heaven, and Bhuvaha is something in between. There are different meanings to it based on the context, but I like the yogic context because that makes more sense to people. What is Upadana Karana? This we will talk in the next section of the lecture. If you have any live questions, please go ahead, unmute yourself and ask the questions.
Namaskara, Krishna. Srinath here.
Go ahead, please.
My question is basically on the dharma itself. Going to the famous statement, dharmo rakshati rakshitaha. That means there's an implication that dharma needs to be protected. Dharma is ever existing. The seed of dharma is always there. Why there's a there's an intention that it needs to be protected?
Very good point. Excellent point. Okay. See, the thing is, dharma is the nature of things, right? I told you a long time back also, the eyes see. That is the dharma of the eyes. When the child is born, naturally the child comes with the eye which is working by nature. But if there is something wrong, the eyes may not work. Even while we are living, initially we may have good sight. But after misuse of eyes or watching too many movies or whatever, we may lose our eyesight, or our eyesight may become bad. That needs to be corrected. So you need some glasses for correction, right? So dharma can go wrong. Even over time, the older people, the earlier rishis could directly go to the fourth state. That dharma was there. They lost that dharma. Things went. So the bridge to go to Brahman, bridge to reach realization was broken. That needs to be protected. So dharma can go wrong. Dharma can go wrong, and dharma has to be kept in order. So if there is a problem with, the digestion is the dharma of our, this one, we eat the food and we digest. If there is a problem, we have to take medicines, right?
Yes.
So dharma can go wrong, but you constantly have to put them back in the normal state. So dharma is the normal state of anything in this universe.
Understood, Krishna. Thank you.
Okay. I see some more questions. Knowledge is always associated with a real substance, that is that which is subject to modification or has different states. There is no such thing as knowledge of the unreal. Only a real substance object can create a real effect. Therefore, for us, there is nothing such as fiction. That is, I'm reading it. If you want, you can unmute yourself and talk to me about the question also. You don't have to type in because it may take a long time. Okay, what you're saying is there is nothing called unreal. All knowledge is real. That's what you're trying to say, right? Is that a question? Or what does it mean? What is the real question here? Therefore, there's nothing. Is this correct? Okay. So the question is, knowledge always is real, and it's about a real substance, and there can be nothing called unreal. Is it right? This is the question. Okay. The answer here is this. The answer is, this is one view. That means Sarvam Yathartha Jnanam is a view of Ramanuja.org. So whatever knowledge is true. So for Ramanuja.org, even a dream is true. Why? While dreaming, the person actually experienced a flying tiger or something in the dream. But when you wake up, that object is not there. So in that sense, there's something unreal there. But for Ramanuja.org, Sarvam Jnanam Yathartham. That means even dream experience during that time, that experience happened. That is why you remember that there was a flying tiger during your dream when you woke up. So different acharyas have defined reality, unreality in different ways. So we have to get to the definition of what reality is. This is the hard problem. Some acharyas have come up with the concept of what do you call as Pratibhasika Satya, Vyavaharika Satya, and Paramarthika Satya. So what they say is Paramarthika Satya is the absolute truth, and the relative truth is this universe, like, this is Advaita view, right? Advaita view is relative truth, that which is relative to us here. And Pratibhasika Satya is something like the snake rope illusion. I will go into this a little bit later during this class. Why don't we do one thing? Wait for a few more minutes. I will be addressing the nature of reality in my next session. And if you have more details, I cannot understand your question because it's not enough for me in text. Any other question before we jump into the next 30 minutes?
Namaste, sir. This is Prashant here.
Okay, Prashant. Your volume is very low as usual. Please correct it.
Yeah. So I had only one query. Like if dharma can be related to Rita, because dharma is required to keep Rita in the like Brahmanda. Like Rita is kind of order. So whether dharma and Rita can be related?
Dharma and Rita are related. The relationship is complex. Rita is the causal truth. The original truth is known as Rita. Satya is truth in a very general form. In that paper, Satyanveshana, Rita and Satya are explained. So yes. Dharma is a method to get to Rita. We have to get to the Rita. Rita is the original, universal, cosmic truth.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Then can we do one thing? Let me go finish up the rest of the slides and again come back to question answers. I have a hard stop at about 9:15, 9:20. So we have about 35 minutes more. Okay. Let me get to these slides. I'm going for, how do I do this here? I'm getting to the slideshow. Can you see my slides?
Yeah, we can see all your
slides. Yes, we can.
Okay, let's get to the, oops. All right. So let's understand causality here. The Vedic statements clearly say, Etova imani bhuta nijayante e najata nijivanti et prayantyabi sampishanti. All these are said in the Vedic states, in the Vedas, right? So what we see from the Vedas is this universe was, what we see in front of us is this universe. How did the universe come? Did Brahman create universe out of something else? Or did Brahman become the universe? What is reality? The Vaidika view is Upadana Karanatva. That means Brahman is the material cause of this universe. He became, something happened here. Hold on a second. Okay. So he became this universe, but he may still remain as Brahman and still become the universe also. That's a different question. Let's try to understand a simple view first. Simple view is Upadana Karana is material causality. Material causality is simple. The example of material causality is a lump of clay. The lump of clay is the karana or the cause, the material cause, and that is shaped into a pot by a potter. So the effect is a pot, and the cause, the material cause, is the lump of clay. So Brahman, in the Vaidika view, depends on which Vedanta you're talking about. But according to Advaita and Vishishta Advaita, Brahman is both the material cause and the efficient cause, which is the potter. Both the potter and the mud is Brahman, according to these two Vedantas. So Brahman caused this universe and also became the universe. Now, What is Nimitta Karana? Is the potter who puts things together. So in the case of universe, Brahman puts the jivas and the matter together and put them in this universe and let them experience karmas and do more karmas. So that's how Brahman works, based on the Nimitta Karana view. A Vaidika view is combination of both. For some philosophers, it's only Nimitta Karana. For Dvaita, it's only Nimitta Karana. That is, Brahman only puts things together. Brahman is separate, jivas are separate, and matter is always separate. That is the Dvaita view. Okay. Now came the Buddhism. Buddhism popped up after Buddha was born, and he got realization, something like 600 Common Era, before Common Era. What did they say? They said that Buddhists said, so Buddha said many things, and later on, Buddha was not anti-Vedic initially, but their students and their later followers created different versions of Buddhism called Mahayana, Hinayana, and different Yogacara, Vijnanavada, and different schools. And they became very different. So what happened? On the Vedanta side, there was a Bodhayana Vritti written, and that Vritti was lost during the time of Buddhists. So Upavarsha, who is quoted by Shankaracharya, mentions the name of the book called Kritakoti. This Kritakoti is actually a detailed explanation of Brahma Sutras written by Bodhayana. But that is lost. The loss is a big loss for Vedanta system because different views came up. If that book was there, we wouldn't have had probably 3 or 4 Vedantas. There would be probably 1 or 2 only. Not much difference. But we lost a major book in Vedanta. That's the will of the Supreme Lord. So Bodhayana mentions Upadana Karanatva, but Buddhists did not like it. Buddhists said, anything which is created can be destroyed. It will perish. So Buddhists said, your Brahman who becomes this universe will get destroyed. Because Brahman is destroyed, you're following something which will get destroyed. So your whole philosophy is wrong. Brahman is perishable and you're following the wrong Brahman. That is Buddhist view. The Vedantins had a lot of trouble because they could not attack the Buddhists at that time. They tried to, many people tried, like the Dhyana Niyogavada, Mandana Mishra, and prior people, the Mimamsakas. Several people tried to attack Buddhists, but they could not. But the Nyaya Vaisheshika and Mimamsakas definitely brought down Buddhism. That means they had very powerful arguments against Buddhism, but that was not sufficient. Still, a lot of Buddhists were there, and that's when Shankaracharya came into the scene. And one question comes up. Why was Shankaracharya's works so powerful when other people failed? What was special about Shankaracharya which could attack Buddhism in a way, but the other Vedanta people, other people could not at that time sufficiently contain Buddhism? So this question pops up. Now we try to understand what Buddhism is. Before you answer the question, we need to understand what Buddhism is. So Buddhism, the view of Buddhism is from Buddha to Madhyamika. Madhyamika is a later version of Buddhism. The other versions are Yogacara, Sautrantika, Vijnanavada were there later after Buddha. So Buddha generally, we can say, let's talk about Buddhism, not exactly the views of Buddha. Shunyata means nothingness, emptiness, void. What Buddhism says is there is no Brahman, there is no Atman, there is nothing that lasts in this universe. Everything is kshanika, momentary, and it gives only sorrow to you. There is nothing which lasts. And you have to find nirvana, and that is the escape from this universe. That's their view. Okay. Now, I think we'll also come to the Samvriti Satya issues. Let us think about this Buddhism a little bit carefully. What is emptiness? Emptiness is not exactly complete void. Emptiness is, there is essence. There is no essence as anything. We eat something, we like the sweet, and afterwards the sweetness will go away if we eat more of the sweets. And you said, no, I don't want any more sweet. Similarly, all experiences in our life, they don't have any essence. There is no real happiness. There is nothing of any value. See, that is what Buddha meant. Slowly, the Buddhist philosophers started defining emptiness in very different ways. What they said is emptiness of essence. Phenomena or experience. Phenomena means experience. Have no inherent nature by themselves. They're all dependent on other things. There's no inherent nature of anything. You say, for example, this cell phone. There's no inherent nature. It's made of parts, and there's a combination. When you go into some other part, again, that's made of different things, and it depends on other things, but there is no self-nature. There is no real nature. That is what they meant. There is no essence of anything. So everything is dependent on other things. That is known as pratitya samutpada. That concept is very difficult to understand. We will just mention it at this point. We cannot go into depth of it. Then came there are complexities about Karya, Karana Bhava, the Madhya, Nagarjuna's Karika. And in simple ways, we can say, Buddhism says, look, there was nothing before this flame came into the picture. You lighted up this flame, there was no flame, but it just came there. And then if you blow the candle away, the flame goes away. So this whole universe came from pretty much, it's not nothing, but it came from some causes which have no real value. It just appeared, right? This universe we are experiencing came from some causes, whatever it could be. We just call it nothing or shunya. They called it as the word shunya. Shunya is not emptiness, but it's something inexplicable, something which cannot be explained. Okay? Then this universe will go away, and that goes to nothing. In a way, nothing itself could be even nirvana, that comes later. So they came up with the idea of two levels of reality, Samvriti Satya, Paramarthika Satya. Samvriti means the transactional truth. So we see the rain is falling, we get drenched. All these things are transactional truth. Paramarthika Satya is something beyond all these things. And they said Paramarthika Satya is where the happiness is, and one has to get out of this Samvriti Satya. That was the idea. Nagarjuna's view will come late. We will explain Nagarjuna's view. Let me take the question later about Nagarjuna's view. Nagarjuna basically put everything into explain the idea of this pratitya samutpada and no essence in anything. And his arguments, we'll come to Nagarjuna a little bit later. There's a sentence of Nagarjuna, it's extremely powerful. I will mention that. So this is roughly what Buddhism and Madhyamaka view of life is. Madhyamakas are nihilists in a way. They are not really nihilists. That's very important, because the shunya is not completely nothing. In fact, one of the Sahasranama names of Mahavishnu is Shunya. Viraha Avishama Shunyaha is actually a name of Mahavishnu. So Shunya cannot mean nothing. This is known as Shunya Vivartavada. Vivarta is appearance. So from Shunya appears as his reality, and this reality goes back to Shunya. That's the Buddhist view. We're coming to the date of Shankara only for some reason. Don't worry about it. You can read this later. Decline of Buddhism and rise of Vedanta. Okay? Now, what Shankaracharya said is, don't say it is Shunya, say it is Brahman. So let's first understand the snake rope illusion. That is Rajju Sarpa illusion. Rajju means rope, snake means snake, right? So in darkness, this piece of rope can appear coiled and it's dark, and it could appear like a snake. And if the wind is blowing, it may shake a little bit, and that, oh my God, this is moving, and that should be a snake. So you feel this, actually snake is inside your mind. Snake is not really there. It's in your mind. But certain conditions, the light conditions and all, can give you an illusion of a snake, and you say that, oh, this is a snake. Then if you take a torch and torchlight and beam it there, you suddenly find, oh, no, this looks like rope. This can't be a snake. Then you realize there is no problem. There's no fear. I can happily go to sleep because the rope is not going to bite me. So it was in your mind, it got cleared. So this is the one view of Advaita. This is known as Brahma Vivartavada. So this is, Shankaracharya said, look, Brahman, there's something constant, that is the basis of everything is there. And that Brahman can appear as this universe. And with jnana, with the knowledge that the knowledge of universe is destroyed, and what remains is Brahman. Here in this particular analogy, you have to understand that the snake is also the jivatmas, the viewers, the knowers, the experiencers, the feelers. They're also included in the snake. So the snake is imaginary. So in the jivatmas are imaginary, the Ishvara is imaginary, the Vedas are imaginary. What is true is Nirguna Brahman only, which is the basis of everything. This is the idea of Shankaracharya. And why does this happen? Why does this illusion occur? Because of the Maya. The Maya is indefinable. You cannot define Maya at all. Anirvachaniya. So what is the contribution of Shankaracharya? He used Brahma Vivartavada instead of Shunya Vivartavada and confused the Buddhists who are remaining. Maybe 30% of the Buddhists were still there. 70% were already beaten up by the other logicians like the Sankhya, Nyaya Vaisheshika, and all those people, and Mimamsakas. Buddhists believed in two levels of reality, but oh, this looks similar to Shankaracharya, but there was something different. Brahman is the difference. So Shankaracharya said, I now solve the problem of this Buddhist. Buddhists think that the Brahman is being transformed. So anything that transforms will perish. What Shankaracharya said is, Brahman does not transform. Brahman appears to be transformed, and that's an error. There is no transformation. So the rope does not transform into the snake, but it's in your mind. So the transformation is inside your mind. It's unreal transformation. So he says, I justify that Brahman does not get hurt by transformation because the transformation is not real. Brahman is nirguna, untouched. So Advaita Brahman is closer to the Vijnanavadins. Vijnana of the Vijnanavadins, the same concept of Advaita. But Vijnanavadins believes in multiple Vijnanas or Jivatmas in a way. Where Vijnanas are something like Jivatmas. Shankaracharya said there's no point in having so many Jivatmas. One consciousness is enough to explain all these concepts. So many Buddhists also got converted into Advaita, and some Buddhists did not like Shankaracharya. So they ran away from India, they went to Ceylon, or they went to Tibet, or they went to Burma, or wherever or China, or many places. Right? So Shankaracharya established Vaidika Dharma by saying that Brahman exists and that information is contained in the Vedas. This is the major contribution of Shankaracharya. Because Parinamavada or transformation view was failing, even though Parinamavada is indicated in the Shastras, in the Vedas, Parinamavada is there. The mud analogy, mud transformation into a pot is explained in the Sadvidya of the Chandogya Upanishad, Tattvamasi, where Tattvamasi is present in that section 6 of Chandogya. Parinamavada is explained in detail, but Shankaracharya takes it as Vivartavada and explains it as is an unreal transformation. Now, coming to Nagarjuna's view, this sentence is very important to understand. Nagarjuna says, Nagarjuna is very similar to Advaita. Nagarjuna's view is very similar to Advaita, except take out the Brahman, take out the Jivatmas, take out, that's it. In fact, in Advaita, it's very easy. Everything is unreal, except Brahman. So if you take out Brahman, that's what Nagarjuna's view is. Let's see, look at this statement.
Krishna, the slides are not moving. We are still on the Potter slide.
Why is this? Now?
Still on the Potter slide.
No.
Let me redo it, okay?
Yep, now we are in the Nagarjuna view. We
sorry.
never went to the Rajasarpa view, but that's okay. We were able to understand. We've heard that before.
Okay. Sorry.
No issues.
Okay, let me see if it works. Now, let's look at Nagarjuna's. For Nagarjuna, the phenomenal world is the limited truth, Satya, and does not really exist in the highest reality, which is Paramartha Satya. And yet, it has a kind of conventional reality which has its uses for reaching liberation. So conventional reality has value. This limited truth includes everything, including the Buddha himself, the teachings of Dhamma, which is known as Dharma, liberation, and even Nagarjuna's own arguments are contained in this limited truth. This two-truth schema, which did not deny the importance of convention, allowed him to defend himself against charges of nihilism. So it is not nihilism because the Samvritti Satya exists or the conventional reality is there. Because of his philosophical work, Nagarjuna is seen by some modern interpreters as restoring the middle way of Buddha, which had become influenced by the absolutist.
Illa.
Please mute yourself. Parthaswamy, you need to mute yourself.
Sorry, I muted myself.
Nagarjuna is seen by some modern interpreters as restoring the middle way of the Buddha, which had become influenced by absolutist metaphysics tendencies of schools like the Vaibhashika school. This we will not go into detail because it's complex. But one thing, the point is, Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism is Advaita minus Brahman. That's all. That you need to remember. So there is similarity with the Advaita. And if you look at the paragraph, Buddha is also in the Samvriti Satya. Advaita also says the Vishnu, Devatas, Saguna, Brahman, everything are in the conventional Vyavaharika Satya reality. Even the Vedas, arguments and everything are in the relative reality. So Paramarthika, which is Nirguna, is only one thing. The summary is Shankaracharya won the battle and established Vaidika Marga and established Advaita, which is a powerful school in India. In spite of so many arguments against Advaita, if you look at Indian population, more people believe in Advaita than other systems of thought. So the other two mathas happened, that is Ramanujacharya came next, that is 1017 to 1137, 120 years he lived, and he established Vishishtadvaita, and then came Madhvacharya, that is 1238 to 1317 CE. For 79 years he was there and he established Dvaita system. Both these systems take Advaita as the Purva-Praksha and modify their views, and they have minor differences. The focus of Bhakti on Mahavishnu is common to both these two systems, that is Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya. Shankaracharya is also a Vaishnava, but Shankaracharya says any deity will work. So these two matas came in. My acharyas feel in their hearts, these acharyas agree with one another in principle. They express the idea differently based on situation, times, and the mindset of people in front of them. That's the view of my Acharya. This is what I wanted to tell you today. I have finished a little bit early. We're okay for questions for 10 more minutes. And I'm going to pick up the Nagarjuna questions right from where I stopped there. I just first going to talk about this Nagarjuna question. What is the Nagarjuna question? Nagarjuna Shunyavada and Vasubandhu's Vijnanavada seem to have some influence on Vedanta as regards Vijnana. See, we can say they've had some influence on Vedanta in a way, right? Many people say Bhagavad-Gita was influenced by Buddhism. Okay, which this kind of you can go either way. We cannot be sure about anything, but there could be anything. That could be true too. I'm not denying that. So this Dharmakaya principle and all, they made Mahayana Buddhism more theistic in a way, and that is true. So Mahayana Buddhism believes in a Saguna version of this. In Advaita has the Saguna Brahman, and anybody can be Saguna Brahman. Shiva, Parvati, the Panchayatana Buddhas like Ambika, Surya, Ganesha, all these can be Saguna Brahman, portion of Saguna Brahmans, right? A view of Saguna Brahman. Similarly, the Dharmakaya for Buddhism in the Mahayana Buddhism became a theistic ideal. So they are very close. There's no doubt about it. It seems that they are not able to clearly or logistically defend nothingness and slowly and subtly seem to embrace the existence of Brahman. This query is, see, the thing is, they don't really, none of the Buddhists accept that there is something constant called Brahman. Their problem comes not in the Brahman view, but in the goal. That is, Nirvana is something they have to accept. All divisions of Buddhism, all different branches of Buddhism accept something known as Nirvana, because that's very essential. What Buddha said is life is full of miseries, and to get out, there is a path, and that the goal is Nirvana. So he agrees with Nirvana. But what he says is he refused to talk about Nirvana in detail. He said that that is beyond ordinary Sampriti Satya. Sitting in this relative reality, we cannot talk about Nirvana. And somebody asked him, is Nirvana eternal or not? Because they wanted him to commit and say that there is something eternal like Brahman. But Buddha refused to answer that question. He answered the question with only silence. What does it mean? You go realize yourself. I'm not going to say it is beyond talk. It's beyond mind and any kind of conversation. You have to experience Nirvana to figure out what it is. So he did not commit to a permanent Brahman. That is what I think. Any other questions? Or if any other continuing, follow-up questions, you can go ahead. I'm open for another 7
Could it also
minutes.
be because of because it's beyond human comprehension?
True. Yes. See, there are, again, Buddhism has got slightly different views. The Theravada Buddhists supposed to be the close followers of Buddha himself. They are the older Buddhism, right? Theravada. There is no Sthaviravada. That Vada says there is nothing in this universe which is suprasensory. Right? Even the Nirvana, they don't want to say Nirvana as something suprasensory or beyond ordinary. So there's a problem with that view. They don't agree with something beyond ordinary life. Buddhism is very realistic.
But one question I've had about Buddhism or any isms in general, right? We are taking different views and perspectives based on what we are limiting ourselves to and assumptions that we are seeing based on what we are putting ourselves in. But if you combine, try to combine these views, it always shows that there is a creator beyond us. There is, at least based on what I'm seeing, maybe I have my own biases, but like Buddhism, you said, comes from Shunya, right? Or, basically like null, according to that one of the theories, and that there is no Brahma.
See, null is not nothing. It cannot, see, it doesn't have to be a constant thing like Brahman, right? It can be something not constant. Something, It's just a flux. There is nothing called real. It's only happening. Constantly some things are changing, but there is no basis. But
so it's like coincidence.
It's not a coincidence, it's happening. The phenomenon experience is real. It's relatively real. From an absolute perspective, there is something else. This conventional experience does not exist. So for them, creation has no value. God, creation, creator has no value in Buddhism.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I will explain to that later some other time. Let me look at one question which came up here. Okay. The question 6 is, I noted the Vishishtadvaita definition or a real to ask a question about avatara. According to this definition, it would seem that an avatara does not have to be in the form of a historical person. A descent of Krishna into a text is as valid as Krishna being a historical person. Is this a correct understanding? Yes, this is a correct understanding, because asankhyayaha avataraha, harer avataraha asankhyaha, uncountable, innumerable, or the number of avatars. We only pick up 10 as Dashavatara or 39 from the Pancharatra view and say these are the avatars of Mahavishnu. But there can be number of more. See, the Veda says Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. Everything in front of me is Brahman in a way. So it does not need to be a person or anything. It could be totally in a different way. Yeah, that's possible.
Krishna, just picking up on the last thing that you said nirvana is undefinable, even according to Buddha. What is vana? The nirvana is lack of vana, right?
Vana, see, the thing is, the senses or body is known as vana in a way. It's something beyond this particular existence. See, nirvana is defined very differently from different people. I can explain to you, I can take the question up some other time, next time.
Okay. Yeah. You don't have to answer now, but that just came up. If nirvana is undefinable, what is vana?
Okay. See, nirvana is given different meanings from a yoga perspective. Some slightly different is there. The word nirvana, which comes in Bhagavad-Gita, is explained by 3 acharyas differently. So it's a little complex.
Okay. So the other question is, the sadhaka attains nirvana. And then is that the same as shunya? Is nirvana same as shunya after the sadhaka attains it?
In a way, it could be. Because nirvana is again, Buddhism's view of nirvana is very complex.
Okay.
They agree that shunya itself is nirvana also, in a way. Okay. See, that I have to verify and give you, because it's a very wide subject. I have to be very careful as to which part of Buddhism say what. One question I want to clarify.
I have very little knowledge of Buddhism. That's why such naive questions. And one last thing.
I am taking a course on Buddhism. So it's very big. It's impossible to understand everything, but you just need to try it out. Here, let me answer one question. I'm trying to contrast the Vishishtadvaita view of reality versus Western view of reality. Okay, I don't have a very good idea of Western view of reality, but Vishishtadvaita view of reality is anything, all jnana is true. Whatever jnana is sarvam jnanam yathartham. That means whatever knowledge we get is as it is. That's what is Vishishtadvaita view. I did not understand.
So Krishna, Krishna, this was me, Venkat. I put that text.
Okay.
The reason I said that is I was just trying to, in the Western view of reality, there's reality and there's fiction. I was just trying to point out that, something that is not historical or observed reality doesn't necessarily mean fiction from the
fiction is a creation of a person, right? Fiction is a creation of a person, right?
Fiction means it's unreal. So I was trying to contrast it back to the definition, right? There's a distinction between real and unreal and truth and untruth, right?
See, the thing is, fiction is something which is an imaginary episode or something which he writes and makes it as a book, and then it sells as a storybook, right?
Right, but according to this definition, because everything is linked back ultimately to a real, because you cannot have knowledge of the unreal So even the fiction relates to a real.
Even a fiction will refer to all reality in a way, one thing. And another thing is, even if it's imaginary, the thoughts went through the person, the real thoughts were there when he wrote down a fiction, right? So it's a presentation of his thought pattern, which is all real.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
It doesn't matter whether that happened or not. For example, a dream is real for Vishishtadvaita, right? That means the dream may not be real in the sense that it might never have happened as, flying dragon or whatever, right? But during the phase of the dream, that person actually experienced that. And that's what matters for Ramanuja.
So, Krishna, the way I understand is the Shashashranga is the unreal, and the rabbit came and bit me is fiction. Is that right?
Yes, rabbit came and bit me is fiction, which probably never happened, but you thought and you wrote down, okay? Yeah. Shashashranga is a hare with horns, right? A rabbit with horns.
That is unreal.
That is unreal, but horn is real, but rabbit is real, but the combination is unreal. That's
right. Okay. Krishna, I had one other question going back to the beginning of your second session today. You said the Brahman is the material cause and the efficient cause in both Advaita and Vishishtadvaita. There is nothing else in that equation. So is that fair to then conclude that the effect is also Brahman?
In what system?
Advaita and Vishishtadvaita, both.
See, the effect is also Brahman. Because if you read the explanation of Tattvamasi of Chandogya in our Ramanuja Bhashya, which refers back to the Ramanuja Bhashya, it clearly says that this jiva is not jiva; it's just a mode of Brahman. This matter or mud or whatever we see in front of us is not. This is not a cell phone. This is Brahman in the form of a cell phone. Right? Everything is Brahman.
Okay, I mean, that's how I kind of concluded, but I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Sure.
Krishna,
okay,
Suresh,
I might have to put a stop now because I only have 12 minutes before I get on by this one. I need to get prepared. Okay. If you have any questions, write it down here or ask me next time. I'll try to answer them. Okay. We have to stop. Gurubhyo Mahatma Parama Gurubhyo Mahatma Sarva Gurubhyo Mahatma Shri Krishna Prabhupada Shri Krishna Prabhupada Shri Lakshmi Narasimha Prabhupada Shri Lakshmi Hayavada Prabhupada Sarvam Shri Krishna Pranamastu. Just
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm trying to get out of it. It doesn't even let me.